Long ago, in the powerful kingdom of Aram, lived a commander named Naaman. He was a force to be reckoned with, a mighty warrior, celebrated by his king and feared by his enemies. Imagine the scene, soldiers snapping to attention as he passed, the public whispering his name in awe, tales of his battlefield triumphs echoing through the streets. By every worldly standard, Naaman was a titan, a man who had it all. His armor gleamed, a symbol of his strength and invincibility. But beneath that polished bronze, a secret festered. It was a battle he couldn't win, an enemy no sword could defeat. Naaman had leprosy. This disease, a relentless affliction, clung to him, a constant reminder of his vulnerability. No military strategy could outmaneuver it. No roar of an adoring crowd could drown out the quiet dread it inspired. He could command an entire army, but he couldn't command his own body to heal. In the solitude of his chambers, when the heavy armor was set aside and the cheers faded into silence, his immense pride felt as fragile as glass. He was a powerful man, yet he was powerless. In Naaman's household, there was a young servant girl. She had been captured from Israel, torn from her home and family. Yet, in her heart, she carried a treasure Naaman desperately needed, but didn't possess. A simple, unwavering faith. Seeing her master's suffering, she spoke to Naaman's wife. "If only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria," she said, "he would cure him of his leprosy." That prophet's name was Elisha. A spark of hope ignited in Naaman. It was a long shot, a foreign prophet in a rival land, but he was desperate. He went to the king of Aram, who not only granted him permission to go, but also equipped him for the journey. The king sent him with a letter and a fortune in gifts: 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of fine clothing. This was not a humble request for healing. It was a diplomatic mission, a display of wealth and power. Naaman was traveling not just as a sick man, but as a great commander representing a great king. He arrived at Elisha's home, his entourage of horses and chariots kicking up dust, a spectacle of might and importance. He expected a grand reception. Surely, this prophet would come out, recognize his status, and perform some magnificent, dramatic ritual. Perhaps he would wave his hand over the afflicted skin, call down fire from heaven, or chant a powerful incantation. He was prepared for a ceremony befitting his rank. But Elisha didn't even come to the door. Instead, he sent a messenger with a startlingly simple message. The instructions were blunt, almost dismissive. "Go, wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed." That was it. No fanfare, no special treatment, no acknowledgement of his greatness. Naaman was insulted. His pride, already wounded by his disease, now erupted in fury. "Wash in the Jordan," he roared. "That muddy, murky stream are not the rivers of Damascus, the Abana and the Pharpar, better than all the waters of Israel. Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed?" He felt utterly disrespected. He had traveled all this way, brought extravagant gifts, and this was the reception he got. To be told to go take a bath in a dirty river like a common peasant. It was an outrage. Humiliated and angry, he turned his chariot around, ready to storm back to Aram, his disease and his pride intact. But just as he was about to leave, his servants, the very people under his command, dared to approach him. They spoke with a gentle wisdom that cut through his rage. "My father," one of them said, "if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he tells you, 'Wash and be cleansed'?" Their logic was undeniable. If Elisha had demanded a heroic feat, a dangerous quest, or a massive sacrifice, Naaman's warrior spirit would have eagerly accepted the challenge. But this was too simple, too mundane. It required no strength, no wealth, no status. It only required one thing he struggled to give: humility. The servant's words settled in his heart, piercing the armor of his pride. He stood at a crossroads. He could return home, a powerful, respected, and still diseased commander, or he could swallow his pride and obey this simple, humbling command. The battle raging within him now was far greater than any he had faced on the field. It was a war against his own ego. Slowly, reluctantly, he turned his chariot back around and made his way down to the Jordan River. It was just as he'd imagined, unimpressive, its waters clouded. He stepped in, the cool water a stark contrast to the heat of his anger. He took a deep breath and dipped himself under the surface. Once, he came up, water streaming from his face, and looked at his skin. Nothing had changed. The disease was still there. He dipped again, twice. Still nothing. A third time. A fourth. Doubt must have been screaming in his mind. This was foolish. He was the great Naaman, commander of Aram's army, dunking himself in a river like a fool. By the 6th time, his hope was likely fading fast. But he had committed. He took one more breath and plunged himself under the water for the 7th and final time. As he rose, something was different. He felt it before he saw it. He looked down at his arms, his hands. The rough, discolored lesions were gone. His skin was completely restored, as smooth and healthy as the skin of a young child. The miracle had happened, but it wasn't the water of the Jordan that healed him. It was the act of obedience, the surrender of his pride. Healing didn't come through his power. It wasn't purchased with his silver and gold. It wasn't earned by his status. It was received through humility. Naaman's journey back to Elisha was very different from his arrival. He returned not as a proud commander demanding a service, but as a transformed and grateful man. He stood before the prophet and declared, "Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel." He offered Elisha the vast treasures he had brought, but the prophet refused, wanting Naaman to understand that this gift of healing was free, not something that could be bought. Naaman's body was healed, yes, but far more profoundly. His heart had been cleansed. He left Aram as a mighty warrior, and he returned as a humble believer. The story of Naaman teaches us a timeless lesson. Sometimes the greatest obstacles we face are not the external circumstances, but the internal barriers of our own pride. The most profound victories are not always won on the public battlefields of life, with cheering crowds and shining medals. Often, they are won in the quiet, humble surrender of our own will, in the simple acts of trust and obedience that led to true transformation. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content just like this. See you next time.